The draft clock is ticking loudly in the Twin Cities, and everything we thought we knew about the Minnesota Vikings strategy at 18 is being thrown out the window right now. 10 days out, and the smoke is clearing to reveal a path that nobody saw coming. We are talking about a total philosophical shift that could leave some of the biggest names in college football sliding right past our war room. There is a sense of calculated silence coming from the building, but the whispers I am hearing suggest a massive surprise is brewing for the first round tonight. Dylan Thieneman is a name you need to get very familiar with because the intel suggests the Vikings are looking in a completely different direction than the mock drafts lead you to believe. While everyone expects a cornerback or a defensive tackle, the real buzz from Alec Lewis and other insiders is that Brian Flores might not be looking for a secondary fix in the first 2 rounds at all. This is a massive revelation because it suggests that signing James Pierre wasn't just a depth move but a signal of intent. The Vikings already have Byron Murphy Jr. and Isaiah Rodgers locked in at the top, and the internal belief is that they can develop the unproven guys like Dwight McGlothern and Zamiah Vaughn rather than spending premium capital there. Even more shocking is the news regarding the defensive tackle position, where ESPN is reporting that we might see a historical drought in the first round. If there are no first-round grades on the interior defenders like Peter Woods or Caleb Banks, then the Vikings are not going to reach just to fill a hole. This narrows the field significantly and explains why safeties like Dylan Thieneman from Oregon and Emmanuel McNeil-Warren from Toledo are suddenly the names on everyone's lips. We are seeing a clearing of the board where 3 of the 5 most mocked players to Minnesota are potentially being crossed off the list entirely. It is a bold strategy that relies on the board falling perfectly or a complete pivot to a different level of value. If we are not going for the big boys in the middle or the lockdown guys on the outside, then what is the actual plan for pick 18? The reality is that the front office is looking for a cornerstone player who can define the defense for the next decade, and they might see that in the safety class rather than a weak defensive tackle group. This isn't just about filling a roster spot for this season, but about building a cohesive unit that can support a high-powered offense in the very near future. The signals are pointing toward a very specific type of athlete who can play multiple roles in the Flores system, and Thieneman fits that mold perfectly with his range and versatility. We are 10 days away, and the picture is finally starting to get some real clarity for us. Kyler Murray is the engine that this franchise is building around for 2026, and every single decision made in this draft has to be filtered through the lens of maximizing his window of success. If the Vikings pass on a cornerback at 18, it is because they believe they can find equivalent value later, or that another position is more critical to winning big, with a quarterback like Kyler Murray leading the way. The impact on the depth chart would be immediate, as it forces the younger cornerbacks to step up into primary backup roles while the team looks for a game changer in the deep secondary. By targeting a safety like Thieneman or even a weapon on offense, the Vikings are prioritizing high-ceiling playmakers over positional necessity. Think about the offensive side for a moment, because the impact of adding a wide receiver like Jordan Tyson or a tight end like Kenyon Sadiq cannot be ignored when you have a quarterback with Murray's skill set. The strategic fit is about creating a roster that is explosive on both sides of the ball rather than just trying to plug every leak on a rebuilding defense. If the defensive tackle market is truly as dry as reports suggest, then pivoting to a position of strength in the draft is the only logical move for a winning culture. We have to look at how this affects the season outlook, because a trade-down scenario becomes extremely likely if the top-tier targets are gone. If the Vikings can slide back and still grab their guy while adding an extra second or third-round pick, they can address the defensive line and the offensive line with better value. The ripple effect of this draft strategy will determine whether the Vikings are a playoff contender next year or if they are truly playing the long game for total dominance in a few seasons. Every move is a piece of the puzzle to ensure that when the team hits its peak, the supporting cast around the stars is elite. We are looking at a roster that needs infusion of youth at multiple spots, including running back and offensive line, so hoarding picks by trading down might be the smartest path forward for the long-term health of the franchise in the Murray era. Dylan Thieneman represents exactly what this front office values in a modern NFL defender, because his production and high football intelligence are off the charts. When you look at his history at Oregon, you see a player who wasn't just a safety, but a focal point for the entire defensive scheme. His ability to diagnose plays before they happen, and his closing speed, are traits that would thrive in a Brian Flores defense, which thrives on confusion and versatility. Similarly, look at Emmanuel McNeil-Warren from Toledo, who has been a rising star in the pre-draft process because of his physical tools and ball skills. These are not just depth pieces, they are potential starters who can replace a legendary figure like Harrison Smith if he decides to walk away. The stats back up the hype, as these players have shown the ability to create turnovers and stop the run with equal effectiveness. On the other hand, the defensive tackle prospects like Peter Woods have faced scrutiny for inconsistencies that make a first-round selection a massive gamble for a team that cannot afford to miss. Caden McDonald has mixed reviews due to his lack of pass rushing upside, which makes him a two-down player in a league that is increasingly focused on the air attack. The Vikings understand that using a top 20 pick on a situational player is a recipe for disaster in the current NFL landscape. This is why the focus has shifted toward high-impact players who can stay on the field for all three downs regardless of their position on the field. The career trajectory of a guy like Thieneman suggests he could be a cornerstone for 5 to 10 years, providing the leadership and stability that the Vikings secondary has enjoyed for over a decade. It is about replacing a legend with a future star who fits the modern game perfectly. We are analyzing every snap and every combined metric to ensure that the value at 18 matches the potential of the player. The importance of this news cannot be overstated, because it signals a move away from traditional drafting based on need and toward a more sophisticated model of value acquisition that could redefine the Vikings' defense for the next generation of football in Minnesota. The best-case scenario for the Vikings is a masterclass in asset management where they trade back into the late 20s and still manage to land a blue-chip safety like Thieneman while picking up an extra day 2 selection. Imagine coming out of the first 3 rounds with a star safety, plus a starting caliber defensive tackle, and a new offensive weapon for the passing game. That is how you build a champion around a core of elite talent. However, the worst-case scenario is equally terrifying because if the Vikings pass on a cornerback and the secondary struggles next year, the pressure on the front office will be immense. There is an emotional risk in letting top-tier defensive talent pass you by, especially when the fans are clamoring for a shutdown corner to handle the elite receivers in our division. The tension in the draft room will be palpable as the clock runs down at pick 18 and the decision has to be made between a safe pick and a high-upside gamble. Are we truly convinced that a safety from the MAC or a specialized defender can be the difference maker we need to win a Super Bowl? These are the questions that keep general managers awake at night, because one wrong move can set a franchise back for years. The opportunity is there to infuse this team with the kind of youth and speed that changes the identity of a defense overnight, but the margin for error is razor thin. We are walking a tightrope between building for the future and winning right now for a fan base that has waited long enough for a title. The pressure on Kevin O'Connell and the staff to integrate these new pieces into a winning system is at an all-time high. If we pass on a playmaker for Murray and the offense stalls, the criticism will be deafening from every corner of the state. It is a high-stakes game of poker, and the Vikings are about to show their hand to the rest of the league in just a few days. We have to wonder if the internal conviction is strong enough to withstand the inevitable second-guessing that comes with such a bold and unconventional draft strategy. This draft is shaping up to be one of the most unpredictable and defining moments in recent Vikings history, as we pivot away from the obvious choices to build something unique. The intel suggests we are looking for value and versatility over following the crowd, and that could mean a massive surprise when we are finally on the clock. Whether it is a trade down to stack picks or a bold selection of a cornerstone safety, like Thieneman, the vision for 2026 is starting to take a very clear and exciting shape. I want to hear from you, the real fans who live and breathe this team every single day. Do you agree with skipping a cornerback in the first round to target a safety or an offensive weapon, or do you think we are making a huge mistake by ignoring the defensive line? Drop your mock draft predictions in the comments below and let me know who you want at 18. If you enjoyed this insider look at the Vikings draft strategy, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more breaking updates. Turn on those notifications so you never miss a beat as we count down these final 10 days. Skol Vikings!